Hi, I'm Hazel. I'm 32 years old and 9 months pregnant with my first child. Life hasn't been easy lately, and I want to share my story, hoping it might help someone else in a similar situation. I live in San Francisco with my husband, Michael. He's 34 and works as a software engineer. From the outside, our life might look perfect, but reality is quite different. Michael is emotionally neglectful and unhelpful at home. Most weekends, he spends at his parents' house, leaving me alone to manage all the household chores despite my pregnancy. I love photography, and capturing moments of my daily life brings me small joys, but they are often overshadowed by Michael's lack of support and constant criticism. One evening, Michael came home and demanded that I go to the convenience store to buy beer. I was exhausted and felt unloved, but I reluctantly agreed. Walking to the store, I couldn't help but feel the weight of his insensitivity. Why couldn't he go himself? I thought. But questioning him would only lead to another argument. When I returned home with the beer, Michael barely acknowledged my effort. Instead, he continued to criticize me, finding faults in everything I did. His words cut deep, but I held back my tears. Over the past few months, our relationship had strained further, and his behavior had become more dismissive and hurtful. The next morning, Michael acted as if nothing had happened. He was cheerful and indifferent to the previous night's events. I decided to make amends by preparing a special dinner, hoping it would bridge the growing gap between us. I spent the whole day cooking his favorite meal, but when he returned home drunk, my efforts were in vain. He hurled insults at me, questioning my worth and my ability to be a good wife and mother. I felt increasingly isolated and unsupported. As my due date approached, Michael insisted on taking a family trip with his parents. I was worried about traveling so close to my delivery, but he dismissed my concerns. "Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you're sick," he snapped. His parents, who were often critical of me, backed him up. They lived nearby and were very involved in Michael's life, often putting their opinions above mine. On the day of the trip, my worst fears came true. As we were getting ready to leave, my water broke. I was in a panic and told Michael we needed to go to the hospital immediately. Instead of helping, he forced me out of the car, angry that I might mess it up. I was shocked and felt utterly abandoned. I couldn't believe he could be so heartless. Thankfully, our neighbor Nina saw me in distress. Nina is a wonderful woman, married to the CFO of the company where Michael works. She rushed to my side and called an ambulance. Her timely intervention ensured I got to the hospital safely. Nina stayed with me, offering comfort and support while I delivered my baby. Her presence was a lifeline during one of the most vulnerable moments of my life. In the hospital, as I cradled my newborn, I couldn't stop thinking about Michael's continued neglect and his family's constant criticism. It was clear I couldn't continue living like this. Nina, who had become a dear friend, supported me through this tough time. She even informed her husband about the situation, which would later prove to be crucial. During my stay in the hospital, a video of Michael forcing me out of the car went viral, spreading like wildfire. The video showed his true colors, and the public backlash was severe. Michael lost his job and struggled to find new employment. His reputation was tarnished, and he faced public shaming along with his parents. It was a harsh but fitting consequence for his abusive behavior. Meanwhile, I found solace and support with my parents and Nina. They encouraged me to think about my future and my baby's well-being. I began contemplating divorce, realizing it was the only way to secure a better life for us. The overwhelming evidence and social pressure made the divorce proceedings straightforward, with Michael and his family reluctantly agreeing to the terms. After my baby was born, my life began to change drastically. I realized I needed to make decisions that were best for both me and my child. Michael's behavior had reached a point where I could no longer ignore it, and I needed to think about our future. Nina continued to be a pillar of support during this difficult time. She often visited me at the hospital, bringing meals and words of encouragement. Her husband, Mark, who is the CFO of the company where Michael used to work, was equally supportive. It was comforting to know that they both understood the gravity of the situation. Once I was discharged from the hospital, I moved in with my parents. They were elderly but very supportive and welcomed us with open arms. Their home, also in San Francisco, became a safe haven for me and my newborn. I was overwhelmed with gratitude for their love and care. As I settled into my parents' home, I started to reflect on the events that had led me here. The viral video of Michael forcing me out of the car had garnered a lot of attention, and people were talking about it everywhere. The public backlash against Michael was severe. He lost his job, struggled to find new employment, and faced public shaming. It was a small comfort to know that others saw the truth of his behavior, but it didn't make the pain of his betrayal any less. Despite the chaos, I found solace in my new routine. My parents were wonderful, helping with the baby and offering emotional support. I also began to bond more deeply with Nina. She visited often, and our conversations became a source of strength for me. She shared stories of her life, offering advice and understanding. I began to see her as more than a neighbor. She was a true friend. During this time, I also started to consider my legal options. Nina suggested that I speak to a lawyer about divorce. It was a daunting thought, but I knew it was necessary. My baby's future depended on it. I contacted a lawyer who was compassionate and understood my situation. We discussed the details of my marriage, and I provided the overwhelming evidence of Michael's neglect and abuse. The divorce proceedings began, and they were straightforward, thanks to the public pressure and the viral video. Michael and his family reluctantly agreed to the terms. They had no choice. The evidence was too strong, and the social backlash was intense. It was a relief to see the process moving forward, but it was also emotionally draining. Meanwhile, I continued to find joy in small things. My love for photography blossomed again. I started taking pictures of my baby, capturing every precious moment. These photos were a reminder of the new life I was building, a life filled with love and hope. One day, as I was walking through the neighborhood with Nina, she introduced me to her son, Jake. He was around my age, and we quickly became friends. Jake was kind and understanding, qualities that I had missed so much in my relationship with Michael. Our conversations were easy, and he often helped me with the baby, offering to babysit so I could have some time to myself. It was unexpected, but our friendship started to grow into something more. Jake and I spent more time together, and he became a significant part of my support system. He made me laugh and reminded me that there were good people in the world. My parents also adored him, and they were happy to see me smile again. It was a slow process, but I was beginning to heal. Throughout this period, Nina and Mark were incredibly supportive. They helped me navigate the complexities of single motherhood and the emotional aftermath of my divorce. Mark, understanding the pressures of work and family, often gave practical advice, while Nina provided a listening ear and a warm heart. Despite the difficulties, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. I was taking control of my life and making decisions that were best for me and my baby. The pain of Michael's neglect and abuse was still there, but it was no longer defining me. I was stronger than I had ever realized. As I continued to navigate life as a new mother and deal with the aftermath of my failed marriage, I found strength in the support around me. My parents, Nina, and Jake were constants in my life, and their presence helped me through the toughest days. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, but it wasn't without its emotional toll. Michael's family was in denial about his behavior and tried to paint me as the villain. They couldn't accept that Michael had lost his job and his reputation due to his own actions. Despite this, I knew I had to stay strong for my baby. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. She informed me that Michael wanted to meet and discuss the divorce settlement. I was hesitant, but agreed to the meeting under the condition that it would be supervised by our lawyers. The thought of facing Michael again filled me with anxiety, but I knew it was a necessary step. The meeting was tense. Michael looked disheveled and bitter, a shadow of the man I once knew. He blamed me for everything that had gone wrong in his life. "If you hadn't made such a big deal out of everything, none of this would have happened," he snapped. His words stung, but I reminded myself that this was the same man who had abandoned me when I needed him the most. Our lawyers mediated the discussion, ensuring it remained civil. Michael reluctantly agreed to the terms, including child support and visitation rights. The sense of relief I felt was immense. This meeting marked the beginning of the end of a painful chapter in my life. Back at home, my parents were eager to hear about the meeting. I shared the details with them and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. My mother hugged me tightly, whispering, "You're so strong, Hazel. We're proud of you." Their unwavering support was a source of immense comfort. Meanwhile, my relationship with Jake continued to develop. He was a breath of fresh air, always positive and supportive. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, he looked at me and said, "Hazel, you're an amazing woman. You've been through so much, and yet, you're still standing. I admire your strength." His words touched my heart. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen and appreciated. Our bond grew stronger, and soon, what started as a friendship began to blossom into something more. We spent more time together, and he became a loving presence in my baby's life. My parents noticed our growing closeness and encouraged it. They could see how happy Jake made me. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Michael's parents continued to interfere, calling and demanding to see their grandchild. They refused to acknowledge the harm Michael had caused and acted as if nothing had changed. It was exhausting dealing with their relentless criticism, but I stood my ground, setting boundaries to protect my peace. One day, Nina invited me over for coffee. We sat in her cozy kitchen, and she asked me how I was holding up. I shared my struggles with Michael's parents and the challenges of single motherhood. She listened patiently and then said, "Hazel, you've come so far. Don't let anyone take away your peace. You have the right to protect your happiness and your child's well-being." Her words were empowering. Nina had become more than a neighbor. She was a mentor and a true friend. Her husband, Mark, also offered his support, advising me on legal matters and helping me understand my rights. As the months passed, I found myself growing stronger and more confident. I started taking on freelance photography projects, something I had always dreamed of. It was fulfilling to pursue my passion and provide for my baby. Each photo I took was a testament to my journey and the new life I was building. My relationship with Jake continued to flourish. He was patient, kind, and genuinely cared for me and my baby. One evening, as we were watching the sunset, he turned to me and said, "Hazel, I love you. I know it's been a tough journey, but I want to be there for you, for both of you, every step of the way." Tears filled my eyes as I realized how far I had come. From feeling abandoned and neglected, I was now surrounded by love and support. I looked at Jake and said, "I love you too. Thank you for being here, for everything." After months of struggle and resilience, my life finally began to take a positive turn. The divorce was finalized, and I was free from the toxic relationship that had weighed me down for so long. The day the divorce papers were signed was bittersweet. I felt a sense of loss, but also an overwhelming sense of relief. My lawyer, who had been a steadfast ally, reassured me, "This is a new beginning, Hazel. You're doing the right thing for yourself and your child." With the divorce behind me, I focused on building a stable and happy life for my baby and myself. My freelance photography work started to pick up, and I found joy in capturing beautiful moments for others. Each project was a step towards my independence and self-fulfillment. Jake was a constant source of support and love. He understood my past and respected my journey. One evening, as we were having dinner with my parents, he proposed to me. It was a simple, heartfelt moment. "Hazel, will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes full of hope. I didn't hesitate. "Yes, Jake, I will," I replied, tears of happiness streaming down my face. My parents beamed with joy, and my heart felt full. Nina and Mark were thrilled for us. Nina, who had been there from the start, gave me a tight hug. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Hazel," she said warmly. Their son was a wonderful man, and I was grateful every day for the unexpected turn our relationship had taken. Michael and his parents continued to try and interfere, but I maintained firm boundaries. With the legal support and advice from Mark, I ensured that they respected our space. Their criticism no longer held power over me. I was stronger and more confident, ready to protect my peace and my child's well-being. As time passed, I found a new rhythm in life. My days were filled with photography sessions, moments of laughter with Jake, and the simple joys of watching my child grow. Jake was an incredible father figure, and our home was filled with love and happiness. One day, Nina and I were sitting in her garden, reflecting on how much had changed. "You've come a long way, Hazel. I'm so proud of you," she said, smiling. I looked around at the vibrant flowers and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Nina. Your friendship means the world to me," I replied. The story of my past, marked by neglect and emotional abuse, had transformed into one of empowerment and independence. I had found my voice and my strength. My life was now filled with supportive people who loved me for who I was. In closing, I want to say to anyone listening, no matter how dark and difficult your situation may seem, there is always hope. Surround yourself with people who support and uplift you. Take one step at a time and never lose sight of your worth. Empowerment and happiness are within your reach. Thank you for following my journey.